What does it mean to master the game of life? Like any game, it requires a fundamental understanding and application of the rules. But living in today's on-demand society is making this nearly impossible, as our attention is increasingly being fought over and monetized by others. Will Moore's mission is to help you hit the reset button by providing a new set of game rules based on time-proven universal principles and modern science. To gamify your life by making it fun and addictive to replace your habits in the 5 core areas of your life proven to lead to true happiness. Ready, player one?
There she is. Hello.
There we are. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. You just totally froze, so hopefully that does not happen again. Well, so let's, like we're saying, let's get right back into it. I was kind of mentioning, I think it's interesting. The reason I wanted to have you on the show is there's this age-old debate, work smarter, not harder. There's, depending on your definition of hustling, working hard. So I guess let me give my quick view on it, and then I want to hear your take and how you see it, and we'll have a nice conversation and get people's comments about it. But so I do feel like the world is getting more and more complex. It's getting more and more difficult for people to be able to know what to focus on, let alone to be able to focus on and follow through and do the things that will move the needle, that'll actually make them happy, whatever that might be. Hustling is a word that's got a very positive connotation in our society. I don't know how it is around the world, but at least in America, it's very much like, yeah, hustle, right? Work hard. And I do believe there's, the idea of the importance of, you do need to work hard, and you do need to develop discipline, and you do need to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and this is my goal, and I'm going to make a commitment, and no matter what, I'm going to push through and make sure that I get there, and whatever, that takes. So, but I also agree that there's ways that we can reduce the friction and to not run around with spinning our wheels and doing things that we don't necessarily need to be doing, and that's causing us to be more stressed and whatnot. So that's my take on it, and now I'd love to hear your viewpoint.
Well, thank you for that. I was actually listening to your previous guest on your Instagram live, and he hit a lot of the points that I also talk about. So if anyone wants to add to this conversation, I highly recommend it, because he talks about fun, he talks about happiness, he talks about the hedonic treadmill that we're stuck on. We're constantly moving our goal towards what we consider success really looks like, right? And even just listening to your words, and just listening to what you were talking about, we need to push through. We need to, no matter what, we need to push through. Well, okay, to a point. What are you willing to sacrifice to achieve something? Are you willing to sacrifice your health, your marriage, your relationships? At some point in time where success, and I really don't like that word, to be honest with you, but we're sacrificing our soul, our relationships, our fun, our well-being, our mental health, and it shows, right? All the studies show Americans are unhappy as they've been in 50 years. We're 80% burnout, 80% of us are stressed out, and mental health is considered the next pandemic. So what we're doing isn't working, right?
Yeah, so let's talk about, so now I'm understanding, you're basically, when you're saying Unhustle, you're talking more in relation to career, finances. So, right, and that success, I don't like that word either, because, right, depending on how you define it, to me, success is, and you mentioned even just relationships, like what are you sacrificing? So let me just make sure we're on the same page. I believe that hustle, or whatever you want to call it, hard work, pushing through, is important when it comes to following through on the goals that you set yourself that will actually make you happy. And obviously I talk about these 5 core areas: your mindset, your relationships, your career and your finance, your physical health, your emotional health. These are all areas that you need to set goals in and work towards, not just the career part. I agree, if it's just career and money, then you're in trouble. Is that more what you're talking about? Or are you? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And being more human. I'm talking about rebelling to live and work well. I'm talking about fitting our work. And I love hard work. I have nothing against hard work. I've worked hard all my life. I don't like the word hustle, but I don't mind hard work, deep work, creative work, the work that fulfills us. Of course, that's part of living, of having a meaningful existence. I'm not against that. I'm not saying kick it up and stay in the hammock for the rest of your life. I think that would be really boring. But I am talking about having more harmony within yourself, having more peace of mind, having more emotional well-being, having more self-awareness, and whatever happiness looks to you, putting your life first. I talk about life, work, play by design. So making sure that your life, your internal state is at peace, doing the work that matters, and making time to have fun and do the things outside of work that recharge you and rejuvenate you, so that you don't burn out, so that you're not stressed out,
Okay.
so you have time for relationships.
Yep. So let's talk about, so you talk about a science-based approach to hustling less, achieving more. What is the science-based approach that you have?
Well, everything that you talk about, the tons of well-being from Yale. I did a lot of studying with the Human Potential Institute, so there was biohacking in there, science from mindfulness, neuroscience. I tap into just a little bit of all of these areas. You know, obviously I don't have a PhD in neuroscience. I'm a marketer by background who had my own personal experience with, okay, well, what am I doing with this ambition and constantly going without taking 10 minutes for myself isn't giving me the fulfillment that I'm seeking. So what I would like to direct people into is more of a sciencey approach to how we live, but without sacrificing our humanity in it. Just because you read a study or just because it worked or even a meta study, but we need to be careful too with studies. Again, science is science, and science is its foundation. No one can argue with that. But everybody is individual, right? So, for example, what works for me to design my life is going to be completely different than what works for you, science or no science.
Right. So let's get into, I think that's an important piece is, you know, I think one thing that I'm really trying to focus on to help people with is to personalize and customize their sort of happiness plan. And I mean, for me, it's all about habits. That's what I focus on, helping you gamify your habits by kind of tricking your brain into taking the ones that will help you to move in the direction of these things that really matter, like we're talking about. And, you know, I think it's super important that people understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their passions, their likes, dislikes, preferences. These things are super important because when it comes to forming habits and when it comes to personalizing, customizing your own plan, and you know, you've got to understand these things, right? In other words, like if you, physical health, you know, something you realize, okay, I'm slacking in that area. I really need to get this going. And, you know, you try to go run on a treadmill and you hate running. Obviously that's not going to be the best thing for you, but you read somewhere, you know, or Peloton, you know, everybody's doing it. They did a good job of gamifying it, but maybe that's not for you. Maybe it's like, wow. And it feels like you're using your willpower. And I think willpower is an important word because I feel like we really, in a society, it's like that willpower is used in a positive connotation, but it should be a negative one because willpower doesn't work. I mean, my guest I had, you mentioned you listen. I think I remember him saying something like Weight Watchers. It's been proven like 99 out of 100 like fail or something crazy, and yet it's the most popular diet program in the world. And to me, it's because it's clear that it revolves around willpower for the most part. I mean, they have little bells and whistles and things, but in general, it's willpower versus like, no, okay, what are the foods that I like to eat that I can still fill my belly with, that I enjoy and that tastes good to me, right? It may not be the same as that guy.
So simplifying, which is a big tenet in Unhustle. Let's look at the science and let's look at the habits you want to develop. and then simplify it and make it uniquely yours, you know, grounded in what matters to you, instead of comparing ourselves with 7 billion other people on TikTok or wherever.
That's exactly right.
On social
yeah,
media.
And you mentioned at the beginning of the show, yeah, I mean, it is a, you know, what did you say, that depression's becoming the next pandemic? Right. I mean, you know, teen suicides at an all-time high. That just keeps every year. It keeps getting surpassed. Obviously, social media, these things that we're focusing on and think making us happy are not making us happy. So, right, it's super important. Go ahead.
But to your point, I mean, your gamifying aspect to habits is pretty interesting. So if you're talking about how understanding what goes on in the brain, so you can control your behavior, right? So let's say what gives you dopamine. So I'll give you an example, a piece of research that was fascinating to me to learn, and I realized I was applying it in my own life prior to realizing why I was doing it. That might be just helpful for people. So here's how it goes. You're familiar with flow state, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so flow state, I love that somebody hustling _ is fun just join us so we can have a great discussion with them. Yeah, so flow state is, for people who are not familiar, is when you really feel you're in the zone, when you have that deep engagement with what you're doing, you know, you feel fully present, right? So I'm a former skier, so back in my childhood, I used to get into that flow state, and then came to the US, and all of a sudden, everything that I did from a flow state perspective was related to work. And so the research by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the term flow state, who's considered the godfather of the flow state, stated that especially for people, knowledge workers, when we're working, which is that hustle, right? We have that ambition, we have creativity, we have deadlines. We're like, okay, let's push through it. We're actually in flow state about 64% of the time.
Interesting.
When we're in our leisure time, because of our passive leisure time, we're in flow only about 20% of the time, which automatically, purely based on biology, you would normally gravitate towards working, which will probably explain why over 50% of Americans are workaholics. We're constantly gravitating towards working. In other words, our leisure time sucks. So we need to fix our leisure time and up that level. So finding something that's challenging or puts you in that engaged state, when you have that, you could actually have something to look forward to disconnect from work. When you mentally detach from work, you'll be able to prevent burnout. You'll be able to minimize stress. You'll be able to increase your energy, well-being, all these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And right, the guest we had last week, right, I liked how he was putting it. You know, he was talking about how when you do these
leisure
things
versus passive leisure, maybe is what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yes, where I was going with it is just the fact that you get this energy, like when you're having fun and when you're doing things that you enjoy, and that's kind of what everything I talk about as well. It's like, why not make things more fun? Why not get the dopamine hits that are actually helping you versus the ones that are making you more depressed and stuff? And there is ways to trick your brain and to do that, but
exactly.
and through science, yeah.
Exactly. And so how I discovered it, just to give you a little bit of my personal story, I was, workaholic, go, push through it, make everything happen, run a marketing agency, worked with celebrities, including people like Madonna and Steve Nash, build a little team, and all of a sudden I'm realizing I'm doing absolutely nothing for fun, to your point. I had no time for my friends. Yeah, I lived in Lake Tahoe, and so we had the occasional weekend to do fun things, but I'm still thinking about work. So when I talk about hustle, there's hustle culture, there's the external hustle, and then there's the internal hustle in our heads. And that is what we need to learn to control. And the best way to learn to control that, obviously meditation, proven that you can increase your cognitive abilities and executive function. All these things are great, but you know how hard it is for high achievers to say, "I'll just slow down and meditate now"? It's close to impossible. So if you actually find what you're talking about, the fun things to do to give you that dopamine that they get from work, but they get it outside of work. There was just a couple of recent studies in Europe also that show that people who do something completely opposite from work, from what they're doing at work. So if you're at work and you're sitting all day long doing something active, or if you're dealing with spreadsheets, maybe doing something creative, you you come back refreshed and rejuvenated and with a lot more energy. And to your point, it all comes down to energy, right? So that's what I see as a differentiating factor for Unhustle is how do you increase that active leisure time so that you can mentally detach from work.
Interesting. Well, so why not make your work part of your active, I guess not, I wouldn't use the word active leisure time, but why can't you make your work fun so that you
can
don't have to, rely on getting your energy from when you're not working?
Absolutely. And what I say about that is let's make work play and play free of work. So that's what I did. I pivoted my career from marketing to start Unhustle because I realized that it was more aligned with my values, it was more aligned with my lifestyle, and I had more fun talking about these things and reading about these things as opposed to creating Facebook ads. So I pivoted my career, but it's really hard for a lot of people to do that because we feel we have these society's norms and demands that we can't change careers and we have to keep doing what we're doing. And a lot of it is having the courage to really know who you are and know what your values are and what you really want, so you can design your life around it and fit your work into your life instead of the other way around, which is what we were trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to focus on one more aspect that you're kind of talking. So, we got this guy on here. His name's Hustle. He's saying hustling can be fun. You're saying Unhustle. Let's clarify kind of your main message, which, I know we've been talking about it, but let's kind of summarize the main message, and then let's talk about, one or two habits that people can use to essentially use your system, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but you're basically saying, to summarize, from what I've heard, that, you want to figure out what makes you happy, and you want to make sure that you're spending active time in those areas, building that energy so that you can be able to, push through and do the things that you need to do. And it doesn't feel like hustling per se, because you're basically, you're enjoying a good part of your life and you're creating that energy versus just pushing through things that you don't enjoy doing and are focused on money and work. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm saying it's okay to have the mindset, to your point, to your area of the mindset, to give yourself permission to have fun. It's okay to think that you can fit your work into your life instead of the other way around. Because based on all the science and the studies you and I have been reading about, well-being and happiness are cornerstone to performance. In other words, it's not performance first, happiness follows, but it's happiness first, performance follows. And so with that understanding, fixing your leisure time, giving yourself permission to feel whole. A lot of these issues stem from the fact that we feel not enough, we feel scarcity, we feel deficiency, we have fear of missing out, and realizing that being human on this planet comes in different aspects, and being able to design a 360-degree life with all the 5 elements that you talk about, the relationships and the career and the growth mindset and the emotional well-being, these are all part of living a complete life. And we're cutting ourselves short by just focusing single-mindedly on career alone.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And what would you say, top 1 or 2 habits that you would have people so they can have a takeaway of like, okay, well, how do I do this? Like, what is for your system that you would have them start to do immediately and try to develop a habit?
Yeah, sure. I would say take 10. You know, when you feel overwhelmed, stressed out, take 10 to kind of go through a system that I refer to as TRAIN, which is a mindfulness framework system. So recognize what's going on, you know, spend a little bit of time, disconnect from what you're doing to dive into what's going on. Why are you feeling sad or depressed or anxious or overwhelmed, you know, or busy? Accept and acknowledge what's happening. Investigate where is this coming from, and nurture it and non-identify with it. It's just a really simple framework that people can say, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes to deal with what's happening in my brain before, or in my mood or in my life before I move on with my day. And another habit that I talk about in terms of habits is the Unhustle morning rituals, which I coined the sunrise method. And these are just simple rituals that people can incorporate in their days to start their day from a place of calm and energy, and get ready to do the deep work. And their sunrise stands for sunlight, actually. It helps you sleep better at night. It's a little biohack, so you're getting melatonin. U is for starting unplugged, because you don't want to react to other people's agendas right away when you get up. N is for time in nature, actually, so that you can connect with nature and who is our greatest teacher, and find that harmony and peace within yourself and the world around you. R is for read and write, for everybody who's journaling or reading something inspirational, maybe instead of jumping on Instagram right away or checking your emails. I is for setting your intentions for the day. So what are the critical 2-3 things you need to do instead of 38 to-do lists? Just the 2-3 that once you achieve or accomplish, you can declare the day a victory and move to recovery. Mm-hmm. And S is for a little bit of stillness. That's your mindfulness meditation, practice, prayer, whatever you're doing to have a little bit of inner reflection time. And E is for the energy piece. That's your cold showers, bulletproof coffee, a little bit of a workout, whatever you do. So that's the easy sunrise rituals. I don't call it a morning routine, because you don't have to do all of them every single morning. You tap into these based on your level of energy and mood and clarity and what you need that day. Because again, back to the beginning of the conversation, we're all different, and our energy varies throughout on each day. So why would you try to do the same exact routine every single morning when you're not the exact same person every single morning? To me, that seems very counterintuitive.
Well, I might have to disagree there. Your theory and what you're saying sounds good, and it makes sense in terms of it's good to mix things up in our lives in general, and monotony, can cause us boredom and low energy and whatnot. However, obviously, I do habits are something that I focus on, and they revolve around doing the same things. And the reason that, to me, it's super important that you do have the exact same routine, and I'm not saying you can't mix it up slightly, like instead of having one healthy item for breakfast, even though that's part of your routine, you have something else. But I think it's important to have that same routine, because what happens is your brain starts to fire, your neurons start to fire together. You're basically starting to put it on autopilot where you don't have to think about it. And that's really the key to me, is we have so much going on in our lives, obviously, on Hustle, that it's very hard for us to actively we don't want to have to think about these habits and the things that are good for us, that are pushing us forward every day. And so I think it is important. My morning routine is exactly the same every morning. I mean, does it vary in terms of like one of my elements is filling my kids' love tank, right? That's different every day. Sometimes it's me reading to them. Sometimes but you have to, I think, do the same things in the same order, I think is very important, because then your brain just goes, all right, we got this. We don't have to think about it.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. And what my, because it has become automatic to me, and I do it on an autopilot in the morning, I guess my biggest takeaway with people is to make sure they take the time to do something for themselves. But when I offer my rituals, they're customized to me, so they may not work for you, right? So you need to customize your rituals. That's where I was going with it. I just don't want to offer another, this is the absolute morning routine that you have to do from now on, because I think that's bullshit. So, we listen to all these trends, and I'm just sharing what works for me, and I'm saying take it and make it yours. But to your point, do something every day that starts with time for you. Does that clarify that?
Totally does. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I got some good nuggets. I've just taken some notes there and there. I'll put them in the show notes. I love the sunrise morning routine. I think it's important to have a routine and to be able to use an acronym that is simple. And, if you do get lost of like, oh, what was I doing? What was I, SUNR, and then you go through them, and then that helps people. To me, that's a nice little gamification technique.
Yeah.
Right? You're helping your brain, you're reducing the friction to be able to remember these are the things that are important and that I need every single morning. So, and I love in general, right, our what you're saying, what I'm saying, pretty much the same thing. We're just saying it slightly differently, right?
Yeah.
Like don't overdo it in one area and one core, with in particular career and finance. If that's everything that's important to you and you're just hustling and you're neglecting these other main areas of your life, you're going to be in trouble. You got to get the energy, those dopamine hits. You got to have fun doing these other things. And that's what gives you the energy to push through on these things that sometimes you're not always going to love what you do, and everything you're doing, but you need to have the energy to do it. So thank you.
That's what makes us human.
Thank
you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And let's keep in touch and take care. Everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
That's it for the Gamify Your Habits podcast with Will Moore. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to visit moremomentum.com to learn how you can gamify your life.